You're listening to the Practicing Law Librarian. This limited series is part of PLI's Ever Current podcast, where we bring you insights and updates from legal thought leaders. Find additional episodes at pli.edu or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Welcome to the Practicing Law Librarian podcast, presented by PLI's Legal Information Services Group. This podcast brings you conversations with and for the law librarian community. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in legal information services for 34 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations Group. For this episode, I was delighted to have the chance to catch up with Susan Ryan. Susan has had a varied and interesting career, including serving as a law librarian at a major firm, law librarian at a law school, and as adjunct faculty at Georgetown teaching legal research. We spoke about an innovative blog she's developed that's been very well received by attorneys at her firm, as well as the pearls of wisdom she's picked up throughout her career. Thanks for listening, and hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you.
So I wanted to ask you, for our audience, how we know each other and how long it's been that we have known each other in the law librarian community.
Now do we really want to tell them how long we have known each other? We have known each other for almost 20 years, and we met when I came to Seyfarth, which was September of 2003, and you were my Matthew Bender print rep. And at first we talked about Matthew Bender books, and then we talked about other books. And over the years, we have become friends as well as professional colleagues. So that is how we know each other.
We connected and really have enjoyed each other for years and years. And mostly we talk about books, which is wonderful. Susan is the person who reminded me, told me, and now I think of it all the time, we're never going to be able to read everything we want to read. We're not going to have time. Anyway, we hit it off, and we talk about books every time we're together. Can you tell me a little bit about your work and your background and how you got to your current role?
Sure. The work that I do right now at Seyfarth is just running the office library. So there's a certain amount of collection development work. What do we buy? What do we cancel? And there's also like the actual purchase this item. So a certain amount of technical services work. But most of what I do is research and reference, answering people's questions and participating in ongoing research projects for a host of different attorneys in the firm. Just to give you a little bit of background on the firm, Seyfarth is an AmLaw 100 firm. It has 16 offices around the world. The headquarters office is in Chicago. The DC office has 60-ish attorneys and 70-ish staff resident in the office. We're probably best known for labor and employment work. We are, however, a full-service law firm. So in case anyone out there is looking for legal representation, hey, we can help you out. I've been at Seyfarth for almost 20 years. Before I was at Seyfarth, I was at Georgetown's law school library, and I had several different jobs there. I started out working in acquisitions as a library assistant, and I eventually became the head of the ordering unit in acquisitions. And then I went to library school while I was working at Georgetown, and I became a reference librarian at the very end of 1996. So I was almost 7 years as a librarian at Georgetown, and the task that I was specifically assigned was educational programming, educational services. So think of like bridge the gap programs, training for research assistants, and that kind of thing. I would also go into classes and give lectures on here's how to do legal research, here's how to do legislative history, administrative research, that kind of thing. And before that, I worked at AU's law library for a while. So I've been in law librarianship for a while now. Terrifying amount of time when I sit and add up the years, which I try not to do.
And what made you become a law librarian? What made you interested in this subject or the field?
It's interesting. Law librarianship is not one of those careers that I think if you went into a kindergarten class and asked the 5-year-olds, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. I'm not thinking law librarian is one of those things that's going to come up. Firefighter, astronaut, teacher, maybe, veterinarian, very popular. Law librarian, less. So I didn't even know law librarian was a thing that someone could be until my junior year in college. And my roommate in the fall semester said, hey, we're going to be going to London in the spring semester for semester abroad, and we should get part-time jobs on campus so that we have a little extra spending money. I'm like, I'm with you. I think that's a great idea. She said, I want to be a lawyer. So let's go to the law library and see if they have any jobs open. I said, okay, I can do that. Oh, fine, let's go do that. And we wound up getting jobs as the loose leaf filers at AU's law library. And the very first task that I ever performed in a law library was to file a publication called Radio Regulation, which I have to say, if I were now giving someone their first assignment in loose leaf filing, it would in no way, shape, or form be radio regulation, because that thing was very complicated to file. But I managed to do it. So, sometimes you just throw them into the deep end and see what happens. And I came back from London. I went back to the law library. I worked there, graduated, worked for a membership organization for a little while, came back to school, back to AU to get a master's degree, went back to the law library, and here we are. So basically, I fell into it because my random roommate in college wanted to be a lawyer and said, let's go to the library and get jobs. That is how I became a law librarian. Ultimately, all of my friends are law librarians. My husband is a law librarian. So my entire life revolves around that one moment.
That one conversation. Is radio regulation?
One station.
That's not Pike and Fisher, is it?
It is.
Oh my
it's
God.
Pike and Fisher. That's it. I was trying to look it up earlier to think, who was it that published that awful thing? And I could not remember that it was Pike and Fisher. And they changed the name of it. So it became communications regulations, which seems better than radio regulations, although one does regret the loss of the alliteration. And I have no idea if that is still in publication or not, if it's online only, if it even exists. I don't know.
I don't either. I just remember that because when I started as a Matthew Bender rep in 1989, that was one of the first sets I came upon. It wasn't ours, but it was enormous. It would fill half a library.
Yes.
And very intimidating, very scary. So the fact that you filed that is pretty
terrifying.
Cool.
Terrifying. I mean, it made the old labor relations reporter look like a snap, which it was not.
So you've done all these things. You've taught, and you've done a number of different kinds of instruction, including the ones you mentioned for Georgetown. Do you want to talk a little bit about the training you're doing now, the legal research training you're doing now with the Legal Research Institute?
Yes, I've got several sort of things going on right now. It's very topical. The Local Law Librarians Association in D.C., LSDC, the Law Librarian Society of Washington, D.C. Insiders just call it the Society. The Society puts out, didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I know.
I always call it LLSDC.
Gets to be kind of a mouthful. I know, it gets to be a mouthful. Where the Society is just trips off the tongue. The Society has had a multi-part program called the Legal Research Institute, or LRI, for, I'm not even entirely certain how long, let's say 30 years. That's probably in the ballpark. And it is geared towards people who might be librarians who've been in non-law library situations, like maybe they've been in a general academic library or public library. They're coming to law librarianship and they might need to know about legal research. Now, this is a new area for them, and it's a way for them to learn about that. It's also targeted to people who are maybe library assistants in a library and they're interested in learning a little more about legal research and what librarians are doing. So that's sort of the target audience, I guess. And so over the years, I have been involved in that. For a long time, I taught the administrative research part, that segment of the program. For the past, I don't know, 15 years, longer, I've been doing cost-effective research portion. So usually this is scheduled at the end of the event. And it's okay, so you've learned how to do all these different kinds of research, but how do you make sure that you're doing this in the most cost effective way? Okay, how do you make sure you're not running up an enormous charge on Lexis or Westlaw when you really don't need to? You could search that more skillfully or what have you. And when we were doing this program in person, and the last one that was in person was March 2020, and it was literally the last thing that I taught in person. So I remember it very vividly.
So, Sue, I know that you have written some things and created some things that you're using at Seyfarth for training some of the newer associates or the folks that could use a refresher. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're doing a brand new thing that I am working with our talent development department. There was a sense at the firm that some of the newer associates would appreciate a little legal research refresher. And perhaps if they wouldn't appreciate it, then the people who are giving them research assignments might appreciate them having it. And so we decided that it's just so difficult to get a big group of associates to show up for an hour of legal research training.
That's even with food.
Even with food, it is a heavy lift. And so we thought, okay, let's not do that. Let's try something different. So we came up with the idea that we could record a lecture that would be maybe 15, 20 minutes, so short, on various topics of legal research. I came up with a script, and the person I'm working with came up with a PowerPoint, which looks spectacular, which is way better than the PowerPoints I do. Hooray to her. I will give her a shout out. Her name is Debbie Relkin, and she works at Seyfarth in the talent development department, and kudos to her. So Debbie came up with this great PowerPoint, and so what we're going to do next week, so I can't tell you how it went because it hasn't gone yet. I am going to record a lecture using this PowerPoint. So then if you're an associate, you can come at your convenience and just listen to this lecture, look at the PowerPoint, and get information that you might need. And we've got a bunch of different topics that we're thinking of doing. The one that we're going to start with is, appropriately, how to start your research project. So I am using a mnemonic device that was developed by my very dear friend, Ellen Callanan, well known in the law librarian community for her general fabulousness. It is a little mnemonic device called Just Ask. And you will see that printed on things all the time. And it's a list of questions you should ask your assigning attorney so that you know how to start your project. So we're going to go through that, and we're going to talk about both practical law on Westlaw and practical guidance on Lexis, which I have to say, just preparing to do that lecture next week, I actually went through those tools and said, okay, what do I want to show them? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize it did this. Oh my God, I didn't realize it did that. So there's just so much that is being done now, and not just by Lexis and Westlaw, but by other vendors as well, that it's actually really hard to keep up.
Yep.
And this is one of the things that I would say to law librarians and people generally. You never learn as much as when you have to teach. And it's just, okay, I'm going to have to give a lecture on XYZ. I better learn about XYZ. And there you go. There's nothing like the lectern to focus the mind.
So you've been a law librarian for quite a while. What are some of the most important, say, pearls of wisdom that you would share with your fellow law librarians?
I guess I have a few things I would say. First of all, general little bit of advice is never say never. And I say that because when I was working as a library staff member, I thought, oh, I'm never going to be a librarian. I'm just never going to do it. Never going to go to library school. Never going to be a librarian. Well, here we are.
Right.
Then when I was working in academia at Georgetown, I thought, oh, I'm never going to go work at a firm. I'm never going to do that. No, that would just be no. And now I've been at my firm for almost 20 years. So you just don't know what your career may throw your way. So something that you think you would never do, you may wind up doing, and you might wind up really liking. I guess I would say be open to possibilities, even if they seem bizarre or weird or something you're not interested in. You just never know. And to be even a little more specific on this, and this I guess we could classify as an additional pearl of wisdom, is take advantage of any opportunity that you have to teach. I have found that teaching has been very satisfying for me. I started it at Georgetown and I taught these one-off little lecture things. And then I started teaching 4-credit classes, which I still do at Georgetown. And I was involved in several different things. And it really is a great way to connect with your patrons. It's a great something yourself, because if you're going to teach it, you need to know it. And even when I went to a law firm and I thought, oh, I'm not really going to be teaching anymore, but it turns out, oh, no, there's plenty of opportunity for people to teach and lots of things that people need to learn. And because there are a lot of people who don't feel comfortable speaking in public or teaching, this is a real way to stand out from the crowd. So if you're looking for a way to differentiate yourself from other people, to add another little skill to that LinkedIn profile, the ability to teach is great.
Cool. You can tell I'm writing that down.
Yes. Oh, you should absolutely write that down because you would want to remember it.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I was agreeing with something you said earlier, and that is the best way to really learn something is to prepare to teach it and then to teach it.
Oh, absolutely.
Susan, I also see in your bio that you're co-editor of Seyfarth's blog called The Blunt Truth. You want to talk about that?
I would love to talk about that. Gosh, this would be like the mid-2010s. I had gotten 2 separate research requests from 2 completely different practice groups having to do with marijuana. Okay, one was from the real estate group and one was from the labor and employment group. And I thought to myself, this is going to be a thing.
Right.
This is going to be a real thing, this marijuana that I keep hearing about. And we should get out in front of this, we Seyfarth, and we should have a blog about it. And so I told this to anyone that I could waylay in the hallways and say, hey. So finally, there was an attorney from the corporate group, Stan Jutkowitz, who is the head now of the cannabis practice group. And I said to him, you know what, Stan, I think that marijuana is going to be a big deal and that we Seyfarth should get involved in that. And he said, you know what? My kids keep telling me this. I keep hearing, like, you're right. We should do something about this. So he starts working his contacts and so forth. He comes back to me and he says, okay, I think we should have a blog about marijuana. Yes, we should have a blog about marijuana. He said, will you do this with me? Like, will you commit to this to help me out? I said, yes, I will absolutely commit to this. It is something we should be doing. I'm in. I'm all in. So we started the Blunt Truth. And I said to him, okay, so now we need content for the blog, because it's like this, like that plant in the back of the store that's eating everybody. Little Shop of Horrors. And feed me, Seymour, feed me. So blog, they need posts. I said, all right, how about this? I will do you once a week a news roundup. And so we'll have at least one thing every week for the Blunt Truth. He's like, yes, do that. So the weekly news column is called The Week in Weed, because of course it is, and because I love alliteration, and so here we are. And it's just a roundup of different news items that are going on. It appears every Friday morning, so it's a little light reading, as it were, for the weekend. And I have been doing that now for a long time, 6-7 years. And when people, like attorneys, have substantive posts, they send them to me and I actually put them up, handle editing or linking to things that they're talking about, like a case decision, statute, whatever. I attend the cannabis practice group quarterly meetings. So yeah, it's been a way to show that the librarian isn't just the person that routes you the newspaper.
Right.
We're doing all kinds of stuff. So, when in doubt, you should always ask the librarian, because you never know what that person will be able to do for you.
Like you said, ask a librarian. You saw it in the news and became aware of it and brought it to his attention, and now you guys have a cannabis group.
Yeah. And the thing with librarians is that you're dealing with people from a lot of different practice groups.
Right.
So you can see things that people who are laser focused on their own thing are not necessarily seeing.
Exactly. You never know what they're into.
You never know what they might be able to do or help you out with or something.
So how much do you think of yourself as a librarian, and how much do you think of yourself as a teacher?
I suppose if someone says to me, what do you do for a living? I would say I'm a librarian. But I think librarians are teachers, just as part of your work. Even if you're not standing in front of, an audience and giving a presentation, every time somebody comes in and says, I don't know how to, or I don't know where to, you're teaching, you're imparting knowledge. Now, sometimes you get somebody who says, get me this. That's less of the teachable moment, but you will get people. And I remember this is one of the most satisfying experiences that I have had so far at Seyfarth. There was a young associate. He was brand new, just out of law school, first year, and he didn't know very much about legal research, which that is a whole different podcast segment unto itself. So I showed him, and he would get an assignment. He would make a beeline for the library, and we would figure out, okay, this is where you should go to find this, and this is where I would suggest you go to find this, and so on and so on. And I remember there was a day that he came down after we'd been working together for months, and he said, okay, so I got this assignment, and I looked here and here. I mean, he's just listing off everywhere he went.
Right.
And he said, I'm not finding anything. And I thought, oh, look at you. You went everywhere that I would have gone. I'm like, now I must teach you about when there is no answer. I couldn't have advised you any better than that.
Right.
That is exactly what you should have done. You went everywhere you were supposed to go. You looked at everything you were supposed to look at. And there we are. And what's funny is that this associate ended up leaving Seyfarth, going to another firm, and then leaving that firm and going to an organization that is now one of our clients. And one of the attorneys in my office, who I do things for all the time and just really like this fellow, he is the relationship partner for this client. And so he'll get in touch with me and he'll say, oh, this fellow needs such and such. I'm like, oh, if it's for him, I'll get right on that. And you tell him I say hello, and even yes, to have a relationship with someone, because even though they left the firm, you never know when someone is going to circle back into your life, which There's another pearl of wisdom is people leave, are they ever truly gone? You never know when someone is going to come back into your orbit as a potential patron, and that may be good or bad.
That's terrific. He had internalized everything you had explained to him a couple of times over.
Yes.
And he had learned it.
Yes.
And he had applied it. He
learned it.
So that's wonderful. And I agree with you about the small community, law librarians in particular, but also attorney.
Oh, yeah. Law librarianship, I often think you can't, there's that little game, I think it's the 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. You can't even play that, or 6 Degrees or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm like, oh no. Even DC, which is a huge market for law librarians, it's either it or New York is the biggest market in the country. I bet there isn't a law librarian in town that I'm more than 4 degrees away from.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody knows everybody else. Oh, and there's a pearl of wisdom for you, which I'm just thinking of this very moment. If you are new to law librarianship, or if you are new to a geographic area, I cannot advise you enough to find out something about the local law librarian community. It might be, if you're in a large city, there might be one for that city. Otherwise, there might be one for your region. And that is a great way to meet the other local folks. And what I always advise people is volunteer to do something. And it doesn't have to be a big something. It can be a very little something. Say, yes, you're having your opening reception or whatever. I'll sit at the desk and check off people's names when they come.
Right.
Okay. You don't have to be the world's greatest law librarian to check off a name and hand somebody a badge. Okay. But here's the thing. You go and you do this little thing. You show up when you say you're gonna, you do the work, you don't leave until it's over. You know what? What do people remember about you now? Oh, you came and you did this. This is somebody good. Yep. They will start to ask you for more things. This is how you get a good reputation in your local area. So that if, suppose the job you have, you'd like to move to another one, you've got street cred, as it were, in your local community. And especially if you feel like AA, double L is just too much, it's overwhelming, it's this national organization, you feel, oh, that might be more than I want to take on. Start small, and then start in the local community. And it's a wonderful way to make a positive name for yourself.
Thank you. And that actually leads right into my next question. What do you wish you had known when you began your career? And you've mentioned some of them. You've given me 3 important ones. But are there other things you wish you'd known that somebody had pulled you aside and told you before you began?
That's an interesting question. And I suppose what I would say to myself, especially when I just first started being a reference librarian, and I really felt unsure of my ability to be advising people coming up to the reference desk. If this had been a term at the time, I would have said I was suffering from imposter syndrome. But I didn't know that I had that because that wasn't a thing in 1996. It was a thing, but we didn't have a word for it. And the reality is, you know more than you think you do. And here's the reality. You probably know more than whoever's standing on the other side of the desk. So, obviously you don't know everything. There's always more you can learn, but don't feel like, oh my God, I haven't been doing this for 20 years. I don't know everything. And even though now I have been doing it for well over 20 years, I still don't know everything. But now that doesn't bother me. I'm just like, I don't know. Let's find out. I have no idea. I've never researched that before. Let's just see about that, shall we? And it's okay to say you don't.
Thank you. Those are good. We always end up talking. We're coming to a close here shortly, and we always end up talking about books. Sometimes we talk about books the whole time. But do you want to share something you're reading, something in particular that you're loving?
Yeah, right now I am reading the first book in a trilogy. It's called the Mistborn trilogy, Mistborn. And the author's name is Brandon Sanderson. And it's a sci-fi fantasy thing. And I'm in the first book, and I've just finished the first part of the first book. So I'm not entirely certain where we're going with this story, but it's something I got as a Christmas present from my brother and sister-in-law. They are big sci-fi fantasy fans, and they read all sorts of this stuff. And years ago, I had said to them, I don't know anything about this genre. Okay. You want to know about murder mysteries? I can tell you all about that. I know all the players. I can make recommendations. You tell me what you like and I'll get you something. I'm right there with reader advisors.
Right.
I said, sci-fi fantasy, like if I were to go into a bookstore, if that thing existed anymore, I now downtown DC, where I work, is a bookstore desert. This is not the advance of civilization. But I digress. If I went into a bookstore and I went over to sci-fi fantasy, I would just be looking at things and have no idea what I'm even looking at. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to start with this. So every year for Christmas, they give me something
Trilogy
in the genre that they have read, that they like, that they think that I would like. So this is my latest venture into sci-fi fantasy.
And you're liking it.
Yeah, I do like this. There's a bit of irreverence in it, which is always helpful. We'll see how it goes.
As long as you're venturing.
Yes, as long as I'm venturing. Right before I started this book, just to throw another one out at you, I read a nonfiction, a history of the Midwest of the United States from 1800 to 1900. And it's a book called The Good Country. And the author's name is John Locke. I may not be pronouncing that correctly. It's Lauck. And it was really interesting. It's just about, like, from Ohio to the Dakotas, that area of the country, and what the society was like in the 19th century, and how they viewed other parts of the country, and how they progressed or didn't progress on certain issues. Very, very interesting.
Thank you. So I've captured both of those titles. As long as you're venturing into science fiction, I'll just recommend anything by Robert Heinlein, Heinlein.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you know about him.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I do. I've never read any of him, but I think one of his quotations is, when in trouble or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout.
Right.
Which, there you go.
Exactly.
There's a pearl of wisdom. That's
exactly. We like this guy already.
Yeah. Oh, we do.
Wonderful. And that's a great line. That's a wonderful closing line. Yep. Susan, you are the best. That is the close of our time. But thank you for taking the time today to talk with me about librarianship and related topics. And I really treasure you. And I thank you for participating.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me to be on your marvelous show. I am honored.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian, part of PLI's Ever Current podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.